I thought that someone had added me to an email list. No one knew where it came from. And I just rolled with it. And it changed the course of my whole life, my whole career. It's just the craziest thing that one email can lead to 10 years of friendship, can lead to a career shift in the middle of a global pandemic. It can lead to some really amazing opportunities. Hi, I'm Amy Marie Amen, or Amy Marie Amen as I go professionally, and I'm the Sustainability Manager at Healthcare Service Corporation. We're about a month past my 10-year first TGP anniversary, which is so awesome. I'm actually a three-peat for TGP, and my first program was in Iceland, which was incredible. Like, I still talk about it. People are like, it was in 2016. I'm like, let me tell you about this trip that changed everything. And then in 2020, no, was it 2021? I think it was 2021. I did the virtual Kathmandu University program for sustainable development. And that actually is what inspired me to go back to grad school. And then I also in 2022 did the TGP alumni reunion in New Orleans. And that was incredible as well.
I am just realizing that I have been able to be a part of like almost every step of those experiences with you, which I think is really rare for in general. So that's really special to me, and to be able to continue like our relationship and friendship like through the years too, and watching you grow has been amazing. I have a few fun questions to ask you that I'm going to throw out. The first one, you kind of touched on this, but I'm curious to see if you'll say anything else. What's a place that's changed you and why?
There's a lot of places that have changed me. I think Iceland was really the first place that really changed me. And, you know, you were on my trip with me. It was the first time I had seen snow. Snow in any like large capacity. Being from South Texas, I had seen it maybe once, and it was enough to make a snowman, and then it melted within 24 hours. Kind of, very different. But not just the geography or the difference in the weather, but just seeing that there is so much more to the world than the bubble that I grew up in. And the bubble I grew up in was pretty big. And having that exposure to different ideas and different ways of thinking. And there are things, there are conversations, Melissa, that we had. I was 19. I was 19 on that trip. There are things that we talked about, you and I, one-to-one, that I still think about. Like, there are moments and wisdom nuggets that you dropped to me that I think about to this day. And I'm like, wow, like that was such a big moment for such a small conversation. So the whole thing was great. And obviously New Orleans also was really amazing. Growing up in the South, I was familiar with New Orleans, but seeing it from that perspective with the locals who had been through Katrina, going to City Farm and just seeing the resilience in such a different perspective was also amazing. I know I cheated. I said 2, but
I'll take it. No, those are great. And I also remember a lot of those fond memories and fun times in Iceland. I'll never forget you seeing snow for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and no one else knew that it was my first time because I was alone. I went by myself. And everyone was from like Penn State or like Purdue, and it was all these people who'd grown up with snow, and I'm just standing there at the base of the mountain like
no. Even for me to like watch you go through that experience, it was like such a gift within itself. This kind of ties into that last question. You were touching on this as well. What would you say your travels or like the world has taught you that a classroom couldn't?
Ooh, so actually not a TGP thing, but I was recently in Tulum for the first time in Mexico in February, and we took a tour of of Chichen Itza, which is a Mayan ruin. Our tour guide, he's a direct Maya descendant. There were so many things that I learned that, I had learned about the Mayan people because in Texas, they teach you the history of different indigenous cultures when you're taking your Texas history classes. But I did not learn about them from this perspective. guns, germs, and steel. I knew, the white people perspective. I didn't know that they were trading with the Vikings before the Spaniards ever came. I didn't know that they had these extremely sophisticated ways of living that we would look at and think, oh, like they didn't have microchips, so how could they have possibly done that? I didn't realize that there are so many modern myths that really harm these people. And it really changed the way, and my partner was with me too, it really changed the way we both see the world and see the stories that people tell and think about who is writing history.
That's huge. To have voices of people who've been through it themselves, being able to share these experiences firsthand and in the local context is everything. So that's why tourism is so important. I have two more for you for now, and then we can do fun rapid fire ones. Yeah. What would you say impact looks like in your life right now?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I think personally, it looks like contributing to my community. I live in Albany Park in Chicago, which was was hit really hard by the ice raids last summer. And we, very hyper vigilant. It was a very intense time. And that really brought about a resurgence of mutual aid and of just being there for your neighbors. And I'm still working on how do I do that more effectively? How do I do it in a way that is impactful and is about other people, not about me, which is something that, as a woman and as a white woman, especially, I have to unlearn some cultural things there. I want to acknowledge that. But in my personal life, it looks like, how do I take what I have earned, what I have been privileged to have, give back where I can, whether with my mind, with my body, with my wallet, and really be present. And in my work, it kind of translates as well, where impact is really about how do I ensure that, I don't get bogged down in the reporting. And I really focus on finding that balance, because it's really important to have transparency, but the transparency doesn't matter if there's no one there to be transparent to. And we have to take care of people first. And sometimes that means measuring later, and sometimes that means not having a roadmap. This is something that I learned from you, Melissa, as well in our TGP time. I remember on Iceland, every day I was like, Melissa, I need an itinerary for tomorrow. I need to know what to wear. I need to know what to pack. I need to know this. And every day he found a different excuse to not give me an itinerary, until about 3 or 4 days in. And you were like, the intent of this and not giving you an itinerary is not to drive you crazy. It is that we want to teach you how to go with the flow. Not only Iceland, weather changes every day. You had to change the itinerary every day, but also it was a really critical learning moment of, you're not always going to have a plan. And I've been working really hard with people that I work with, especially the ones who report to me, to help them to find that sweet spot and that comfort of, sometimes you don't get to have a plan, but you can still make a really big impact. You can still learn and you can still do things. So a little bit of a complicated answer, but everything wraps up all in the end.
You're hitting on so many points of just like lessons learned just throughout life, throughout travel, maybe in things that like lessons where you never thought you would come back with, especially from like travel experiences too, or just like random conversations or ways to like push back, and how you've been able, one thing for it to happen, it's another thing for you to hold on to it and channel it to something productive and meaningful in your life too. So I think that's like full kudos to you to be able to like keep running, with these lessons and being able to apply it to your home community, being able to apply it to your work in different ways. It's been so exciting to just watch your journey, as you know. So always supporting you, everywhere you go and your next steps. So yeah, thanks for sharing those. And it sounds like you're, being really intentional about how you can create impact in the capacity that this is the corporate sustainability one I want to go into. So you've been in corporate sustainability for how many years now?
My 4-year anniversary with HCFC was this past February. So before that, I was actually in oil and gas.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been been in corporate sustainability for 4 years, which it's a wild ride, let me tell you.
And I bet there's been so much learning from, especially from coming from a totally different industry. Mm-hmm. Tell me a hard truth that you've learned about corporate sustainability.
I think one of the hardest truths is kind of, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's finding that balance between being a really transparent reporter and actually making an impact and a measurable impact. I think that there are a lot of well-intentioned people who really want you to have a number to measure or a metric or something. And I, as an engineer, 100% love a metric, love a number. But unfortunately, that isn't how the real world works. And so we get a lot of mandates or recommendations. I'm thinking about, greenhouse gas reporting, which is a really big hot topic right now. There are some really cool science-based things that they want to do in the world of the transparency side. But when we do that, we have to always find that balance. And especially because most corporate sustainability teams are very small, how do you still do things? How do you still make an impact where you're not just a reporter, you're actually doing something? And I don't think, we're still figuring out that balance, but I think that's my hard truth, is that, there's that phrase, you can't manage what you don't measure. And I don't think that applies when it comes to impact.
Interesting. What are some tools that and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but are there tools that you find really helpful in your own work in terms of managing that sort of balance, or actually physically looking at how does this balance out? How do we prioritize sustainability versus business or impact? What do we do to measure impact? I'm curious, what is happening in the world with those tools?
There are a million different corporate sustainability softwares out there. A lot of them are really similar. We use a tool for carbon accounting that has been really great so far. But they're all really similar. I would say getting out of Excel is a win. If you can get out of Excel and get in a tool that's integrative and is getting you results that take you a little bit further or can make your work faster, that's really great, because greenhouse gas emissions reporting is really critical. When we think about impact beyond greenhouse gas emissions, which is where a lot of corporate sustainability people get their start, when we think about volunteerism or impact on communities, the SDGs is something that I go back to a lot. It's not always very clear. So the tools are a little bit different. Because I'm in corporate, I work with a lot of vendors. So I have really great, honest conversations with them about, hey, how do you measure? How do you know this is successful? So it's a little more case by case. But I will say a lot of the frameworks out there are also really helpful. So things like the CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Project, even though it's one of the longest reports out there, it's been around for 20 years. And they have a wealth of information and knowledge, and using CDP every year has helped me to know where we need to go next. Even if we don't get there in the next year, it takes all of the other standards and everything, like TCFD, the Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures, that then turned into IFRS S2 alphabet soup. One that's been really top of mind lately for me is the ESRS/CSRD double materiality framework. My team has been exploring how do we use double materiality to quantify or at least have some sort of visual for what is important, and how do we use that to plug ourselves into the right places, because sometimes sustainability is the dark horse that no one expects, and if you can get ahead of that, that's the competitive advantage.
Can you explain what double materiality is for those who don't know?
Yeah, I am not an expert, so if I get something wrong, I'm gonna just disclaimer that I'm not certified. But for double materiality in general, the idea is that there is this concept of financial materiality. Everyone is familiar with it, whether you call it materiality or not. It's financial risk. It's what makes the company tick. What are the most important things that keep your cash flows going? However, there are a lot of things that make a company run or that are really important to the success of a company that aren't necessarily going to show up on your balance sheet. Things related to society and environment, that impact side of things. So the concept of double materiality is figuring out what is going on here when we look at those top things that are top of mind for your leaders, and how do we rank them from the financial and the social or environmental side, and giving them in one place both dimensions, because so much of the time you're doing reporting in two separate spheres that never connect.
This gives me hope, because now it's like businesses and corporations are thinking about how they can work together. So it's really nice to hear about these reports being used. And I know you said this is a lot more popular, or maybe just more regulated in EU than in the States, but some companies are using that as guidelines.
Yeah, they definitely are. And it's really cool to see more and more of these materiality matrices pop up. Materiality has been around for a while. The Global Reporting Institute does single materiality, where they look at the financial side and then how important it is to your stakeholders. That's a little bit different. This, I think, is more, how many times can I say the word impact? But I think it's more impactful because you're thinking beyond, and you're, a lot of times we get the feedback from anyone really that, sustainability isn't necessarily core to every business, because not every business is manufacturing product or, transporting things. Like, there's a lot of professional services firms that get confused about why sustainability should be important. And this helps those people to understand where things shake out and where those relationships are. Responsible AI is something that people don't think a lot about. They think about it either in the context of data center bad, or they think about it in the context of efficiency good, money impact. But when you look at responsible AI through that framework, rather, you can take it and you can figure out where are things important and really be honest with yourself so that you can deploy the right resources to handle that thing and keep it in check.
It's about time that we have this. It's also like bubbling up in the corporate space, especially with these large like Fortune 500 organizations too. So I love it. Is there anything else that you wanted to like mention or talk about?
So many good things. It's been amazing. I think one of the coolest things, and I don't know if you remember this, is that I found out about TGP by accident. I was not on a targeted email list. I received an email in my student inbox that we have no idea where it came from when I was in college. I was a sophomore, and I thought that it came from my school. My school had no idea who TGP was. I thought that someone had added me to an email list. No one knew where it came from, and I just rolled with it. And it changed the course of my whole life, my whole career, and became really this touchstone. And I think it's just the craziest thing that one email can lead to 10 years of friendship, can lead to a career shift like in the middle of a global pandemic. It can lead to some really amazing opportunities. On a more personal note, before we move into the rapid fire, a couple years ago when my dad passed, I had referred someone who I met on my program, Nick Morand. I think you're familiar, you'd remember him. He was working with me at my previous company. He started a GoFundMe for me when my dad died and raised, I think, almost $10,000. And that's a connection I would have never made without TGP. Like, when I was in my darkest times, it wasn't on the mountain that saved me, but it was, without a random email, a random connection, keeping in touch with people, the work that you guys do to keep us in touch with each other, networking, all of that, we all like to hate on networking, but it really led to such an impactful thing for me that kept me afloat in the darkest time of my life and made it to where a year later I was able to come back to TGP and say, hey, I'm curious about this. Let's do it. And then I was able to change my career, and then I was able to build something new out of something that happened to me that was so awful and jarring. So I think, I haven't stayed connected with a lot of people over time, but the people who I have stayed connected with, or when they've resurfaced, it's just been so amazing. And yeah, I don't know, I had a point there, but I think it's so crazy that one email just led to this butterfly effect of my life. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot all about that. And that, yeah, and we talk about serendipitous or whatever you want to call it, it's just, yeah, everybody should check their emails and open all their emails to make sure they're not, you just never know the opportunity that's around the corner. And also, like, shout out to Nick. That's huge. And we are really lucky to, like, bring in such, like, genuinely, like, good people into this community and work. And it was such a heartwarming thing to see him be able to, like, step up and do that as well for you during that time. And I think that's what community is all about, at the end of the day. So we're, so lucky to have you and people like Nick as well.
I will say the marketing and the branding were so good that I thought you guys had been around forever. And so then when I, like, learned more and dug deeper, I was like, wait, what?
Now it feels like we've been around forever. It's we're on our, like, heading into our 17th year already.
Oh,
it feels like it's been almost forever, but there's always just so much more to do, So I love that. And I will say, Amy, like, so much of this, like, you can credit us all you want, like, we will always be there to have these experiences, but it takes a special person to be able to connect all the dots, from being able to be so intentional. I think, like, anyone watching this, it's not just about going on a cool trip and waiting around for good things to happen to you. You applied every part of your learning. You reflected on all your learnings. You're still reflecting on your learnings 10 years after your first trip and applying it to different parts of your life, and I think across any sort of travel, there's so many travels that I've been on for years ago that I still am processing, or I'm still unpacking in new ways too. And that's a fun part about, all the lessons we can be bringing back from travel. But my point is, like, kudos to you for building on that and just continuously building momentum for yourself and your community for that. Absolutely. All right, fun rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So these are going to be like this or that, or like one word responses. Okay. Window or aisle?
Aisle.
Favorite trip so far?
I think the Tulum one that I was just on.
That's a nice one. Something people think is sustainable but isn't.
Ooh, there's so many. I think one word.
Or like a concept.
Recycling, with the caveat that you can learn how to make it effective, but you have to put a little more effort in than people are willing to put in.
We need, like, a whole episode on just that.
Yeah. And it's all municipal and there's limits but yeah.
Okay.
It's not hard to learn it. That's the big part. So
Agreed. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Okay. Most unforgettable meal?
Ooh, the lamb's brain that I had in Iceland.
Yeah. Didn't think that was going to happen on that trip, did you? Mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Okay. And the last one is one word to describe your TGP experience.
Adrenaline.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. Always some doses of adrenaline throughout things.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
But thank you for chatting with me and hearing more about your journey and sharing this with us. Like, I can't believe that it's been 10 years already, and it's so amazing and rewarding to be able to be a part of this journey that you're on, and hopefully continue to do more together as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel so grateful, and thank you so much for making the time and continuing to further the relationship. It takes two ways. So I feel really lucky that we've been able to keep this friendship going. So
you're the best. You're the best. But my marketing team wants me to say that if anyone's interested in learning about Green Program, you should sign up for our newsletter on our website.
You should, because it's a great newsletter. I've been subscribed to it for 10 years. Actually, longer than that. I've been subscribed to it for 11 years because I randomly got added to it a year before my program.
That's so funny. I wish there was like someone I can have go investigate how we actually found each other, but at the same time, I just want to leave it as like it was meant to be.
Serendipity.
Yeah, it was meant to be.